1 minute. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 9, 2024 Albany City Council work session. I'm Marilyn Smith. I'm the council president, sitting in for Mayor Johnson, who has another engagement out of town this afternoon. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councillor McGee.
Present.
Councillor Novak.
Here.
Councillor Newton-Azor.
Present.
Councillor Kupczynski. Councillor Montague.
Here.
Councillor Smith.
Here.
Mayor Johnson II.
The mayor is excused.
Thank you.
Business from the public. We have one person signed up, Mr. Charlie. Please come forward, state your name, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Drew Charlie. So I'm here on behalf of Russell and Tisha Williams about an easement to get to their landlocked property. So I'd like to begin by addressing some of the immediate concerns raised in the memo, which was provided by city staff, and ask that you refer to the packet that I provided for a more detailed explanation from our perspective. So it may seem, after reading the memo, that I'm here purely in the interest of the Williams, and you may think this is even unusual given the circumstances around the sale of Crocker Lane property. So I understand how this might look at first glance, and it's reasonable to question why no easement was recorded in 2016, or to wonder why the Broadway access route wouldn't be a better solution. So these are valid questions, and I'd like to address them directly. So has everyone had a chance to look at the map and kind of understand the layout? Okay, so in 2013, the Williams purchased 2 properties jointly, 2501 Crocker Lane and the property in question. When they sold the Crocker Lane property in 2016, they did not attach an easement to retain the access. And this may seem like an oversight, but I want to make it clear that there is no viable way to access the property through Crocker Lane. If you review the map, you should see there's a creek that runs across the property line near the border of the Crocker parcel. And this area is a state protected wetland. So there's no delineation needed to confirm. This is a well-known constraint. While it's true that development on this lot will have some environmental considerations, regardless of the access route, this route is not only impractical, but in practice, impossible. We respectfully ask the council to acknowledge this route as void and recognize that the Williams had no real opportunity to retain an easement at the time of the sale. So our goal today is not to shift responsibility, but to work with you to find a solution that benefits everyone, including the city. We understand there's complexities to this issue, and I'm simply here to provide clarity, address concerns, and answer any questions. So what we're asking for, to put it simply, we're asking for access. While the Williams would eventually like to see a single-family home on this property, the immediate priority is access. The route we are proposing through Lot 2451 Violet Avenue is the only option that provides immediate access with no environmental impact at this stage. Am I okay to continue?
For a few seconds, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is only because there is existing infrastructure, a utility easement, currently in use that would allow us to assume access without any new construction or disturbance. So we are committed to minimizing impacts and addressing the concerns. Should we move forward with development plans, we are prepared to adopt conditions for this easement, including limiting development to a single-family home to reduce the traffic and the needs of the shared access, taking responsibility for maintenance and any upgrades to the retention pond need to ensure they meet the city's needs. So the other access route was the Broadway access, mentioned in the staff memo also. And it poses significant challenges as well. It would require major construction, environmental delineations, and permitting before providing any real access to this property. There is no immediate access with this route. It also crosses private property, and obtaining permission from the landowner is both ungranted and unlikely to be granted. The route is further from the ideal building area, which I marked out on that map in the packet, where if we did build, we would like to put a house. And it passes through a heavily forested area, which is believed to be part of the wetland boundary as well. So to be clear, a delineation is not required to grant this access through Lot 2451. If we move forward with development, we will provide a formal wetland delineation and a mitigation plan at that time, ensuring compliance with all environmental regulation. So I want to thank you for your time to listen and consider this proposal. And we understand this is a significant decision. So again, we're thankful for the opportunity to share our perspective. And we hope that we can work together and find a solution that not only addresses the needs of the Williams family, but also aligns with the city's values of responsible growth, environmental stewardship, and community development.
Thank you. Would you please provide your contact information to the clerk so that we can contact you in the future if necessary?
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely. Thanks for your time.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak under business from the public? Come forward. State your name, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Dan Johnson. I'm concerned about the new policy for the water runoff bill that everybody gets, and it seems like a tax instead of actually a service, because there's, as far as I can tell, my particular property, there's no receipts, anything that you're doing at my property. So for me, it is a tax, and I just want to know who I contact, because it's really not your control over that, it's the state, so I need to contact with the state to discuss this.
Are you talking about the stormwater fee?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably the best avenue there is to contact the Public Works Director.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Is there anyone else who wants to speak under business from the public this afternoon? We will proceed to the third item on the agenda, Parks and Recreation Local Government Grant for Deerfield Park. Welcome, Director Ledane.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share some exciting news with you all today. Okay, well, you all have read your memo, so I know know that I'm here to ask you to accept and appropriate $485,000 in a grant that we got from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. But before we get there, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about where we are on the project, because it's been a few months since I've been back here in front of you. All right, so our Deerfield overview. Once again, this isn't totally new information, but it's the most southeastern park that serves our community. Approximately 1,000 households, 400 people in a half-mile radius. It's a huge neighborhood park at 10.9 acres. It was purchased by our department back in 2018 from GAPS, as it was a site purchase back in the 50s as possibly an expansion opportunity for them. It has been identified as a priority project in our 2021 master plan. Recommendations in the master plan included renovating our play area, adding some shade structures, renaturalizing some areas, adding a walking loop, and improving access from Shortbridge Street, which is on the southeast side. Back in 2019, these costs came in at about $250,000. So, as you all know, we're not there anymore. But the project was green-lighted based on our city services fee, as without the city services fee, we would not be able to touch this project for, well, many, many, many years, if ever. And so with the estimates, we decided to move it forward. So we contracted with Lango Hansen. They're wonderful. They worked with us on Meadow Ridge, and they're just really fantastic. So we've been working with them. The current park is non-ADA compliant with limited walking connections and incredibly outdated play equipment. Two of which items, the seesaw and the bouncer, are no longer there because parts failed on them, and all the parts that we've had in stock since 1984 when they were put in weren't there anymore, and we can't retrofit anything as that makes it a liability. So this is just a little bit of the feel of it out there. So we had originally set aside about $500,000 for the project, but as time has gone on and inflation has increased, we realized that we were going to need at least about $750,000 from our own city services fee pot to go towards addressing the same improvements that $250,000 were costed at 5 years ago. So in March, we came to you all and you approved us to apply for an Oregon Parks and Recreation Department local government grant. There was a larger pot of funds this year due to a lottery stipulation. Normally, the grants have about $5 million to give out, but this year it was over 30. So as you talk to every other Parks and Recreation director in the state, all of us were like, what are you putting in for? What are you putting in for? And we were all very supportive of one another, but at the same point, like, this was our chance to get some money. So for a community our size, it needed to be at least a 50% match. So we went in for $485,000, a little bit conservative maybe from where we could have gone, but we knew that they wanted to fund full projects and not portions, and we wanted to be on the funded list and not on the unfunded list. So we applied in April, but the review wasn't until this past summer. So in last spring and to May, we had some community outreach opportunities. We came to our community outreach with some proposed designs. As with costs skyrocketing, we didn't want to give people a blank page and say, tell us everything you want. Because folks don't necessarily realize $1.25 million gets you a playground and some concrete to build a very nice but long sidewalk. And almost that's about it for a 10-acre site. So we came up with some possibilities that could maybe be within our financial hold, and we got feedback on that. So we had some meetings on February 28th at the Riverfront Community Center with approximately 50 people. The 20th of March was a refining meeting. And then on May 2nd, we got to go to kindergarten, first, second, and third grade classes at Oak Elementary School to show them different types of play equipment and let them tell us what they want to play on. And what I thought was kind of cool wasn't necessarily what was cool to people who are, 3 feet tall and, 10 years old. So it was great. It was wonderful. So I just want to go ahead and at this point acknowledge that not everybody has the same idea of what would make this the perfect neighborhood park. It's a very passionate community. Many folks have lived there for decades, and any change at all is something that impacts them at a visceral level. It's also a community that's changing, and there are new families coming in and folks who want more out of that space. So I just want to go ahead and say, despite our best efforts and trying to serve the public as best as we can, we know that any proposal that goes through is going to make somebody grumpy. So I'm more than happy to have those conversations and talk through, and have actually on quite a few occasions already, why we are making the recommendation that we are. So just to tell you a little bit about the updated design, here it is. Our proposed park improvements include an 8-foot wide, 88 compliant, permeable concrete pathway with new connections to adjacent neighborhood streets, such as Shortbridge Street, so that if folks want to walk their dog along Del Rio, they don't have to walk in the road. Instead, they can get up in nature and in the park and enjoy that space. Soft surface perimeter walking trail that'll go along the back. We'll have a universally accessible play area with accessible play equipment and artificial turf. You can see some of the equipment that's down there. We're going to have a Merry We Go Around, which is a possibility that if folks use mobility devices, they're able to roll in and be spun around. And I have double checked with quite a few other communities, and it's not just folks who use accessibility devices who enjoy it. You can pack about 10 kids in there and get them really rolling around. So I just want to emphasize that everybody's going to have a good time out there, and that accessibility isn't just for a certain amount of folks, it's for all of us. So new ADA compliant picnic areas, seating areas, a full-size compliant basketball court, a drinking fountain. We're going to put in a permanent 9-hole disc golf course. We've been working, it's been a temporary for a long time, and we have an incredible partnership with the local disc golf club. They've done a tremendous amount of fundraising, and pretty much that's not going to cost us anything. We're going to be adding some new trees for shade. And to me, one of the most important things is that we're going to be retaining all of the trees that are currently out there, which really define that park and create a sense of space, as they're just massive and they're beautiful. So that's just a little bit for what we got coming at you. So the next steps is that we have been awarded the $485,000 from the local government grant. So tonight I'm here to request that you accept and appropriate the funds on Wednesday when it's on the consent agenda. And if all that goes well, then coming up in February, we'll put out an invitation to bid. It'll close in March, and construction will begin late spring, with hopefully an opening in early 2025, the fall. I will not be here on Wednesday, as I will be a merry elf on the trolley going around to communities as a Parks and Recreation program. So I am happy to answer any questions that you have at this time, with hopes of smooth sailing on Wednesday. Yes.
Did I understand correctly that this is a match? So you got 485,000, and then we need to match 485,000, and it's coming from the city services fee? Did I understand that correctly?
So when the city services fee was passed, we decided we were going to spend it all on essentially deferred maintenance and projects that have been redlined for a decade plus. And so city services fees is going to be what, in our next biennium, will cover our remaining $750,000 to go towards this project.
And for now, the city services fees are still dedicated to redlined? Okay.
To be clear, that's the park's portion of the revenue for the
Yes.
city service.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
sorry.
appreciate, that's actually the clarification that I did not request in the way that I meant, so thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks for being aggressive. I appreciate this.
We're trying. Already making a list for next year. The pot will go down dramatically, they have told us. But who knows, maybe people will be so busy with their construction projects, we'll be able to sneak something else in.
Woohoo.
A girl can always dream.
On behalf of my neighbors, thank you for doing this. I'm looking forward to the soft surface trail to add to my dog walking route. Thank you very
I
much.
think I'm going to take up disc golf. I think that's exciting.
It's an accessible course.
Yeah.
It's a good beginner one. I mean, I still can't master it, but you know.
I've played it before. I think this is exciting having one in my neighborhood. So
I think your mic's off.
I think it's exciting to have one in my neighborhood.
Better. It was just you.
Any other comments from counselors?
Awesome. Thank you for the
very much.
opportunity to update you, and
Yeah,
have a
we'll
great afternoon.
Take this up on Wednesday. Thank you. Item number 4, petition for easement access across city-owned property at 2451 Violet Avenue Northwest. Stacy Belcastro.
Good afternoon, council. So the staff memo in the council packet discusses the easement request that Charlie spoke about during business from the public. As Mr. Charlie mentioned, he is representing Russell and Tisha Williams, who are requesting an access easement across a city-owned property that's located at 2451 Violet Avenue. The city was deeded this property when the Covey Run subdivision was developed. A condition of this development was construction of a flood control pond on the property. and it does take up the majority of the property. There is a narrow, plus or minus 10-foot wide gravel access along the eastern boundary. This gravel road is used to maintain the pond, and then it's also used to access public sewer lines that are located on the Williams property within easements. There's virtually no shoulder between the edges of the road and where the pond starts sloping down. So there really isn't room to widen the gravel road without impacting the pond and having to reestablish the grades of the pond. The information, there are 3 attachments that are included in the staff memo. The petition for the easement is included as attachment 1. The information packet that was handed out to council ahead of the meeting by Mr. Charlie wasn't shared with staff, so we have not had a chance to look at it. Attachment 2 is a vicinity map that shows the city-owned property, the property that the Williams currently own that's landlocked, and then also the property that they purchased in 2013 and then later sold in 2016 at 2601 Crocker. At this time, staff does not support granting a easement or a formal agreement for access to the Williams. We do offer as an interim basis, we would recommend that the Williams could work with Public Works staff to access their property. We don't think it's timely to grant a formal agreement because we do not know how this property's going to develop. Attachment 3 with the memo shows environmental layers on the Williams property. These are identified in the city's Geographical Information System, or GIS. I want to emphasize that the boundaries shown in GIS, they're just estimates. So any sort of construction, development, any work that happens on this property because of the significant wetlands that are identified, a wetland delineation will need to occur before any work happens. And it's very possible that the boundaries of the wetlands and the riparian corridor, they could get bigger or they could get smaller. We just don't know at this time, which is another reason why we just don't think it's timely. The gravel road is inadequate for a shared access. It's narrow. Like I mentioned before, we can't widen it without impacting the pond. And so at this time, we're open to working with the Williams to granting them access on, when they notify us, but we would recommend that council don't grant formal access until the Williams have gone through the wetland delineation and we understand how the property is going to develop. Depending on ultimately what happens, Public Works staff, the fire department will have different requirements as far as the access goes. And I should note that really the best access, and I know it's difficult at this time because there's a property that's owned by other people that's in between the Broadway stub out and the Williams property, but ultimately that is the correct connection to this property, and that's what's shown in the city's transportation system plan. So I guess we're just asking council to deliberate and provide staff some direction.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, because if I heard you correctly, you said that staff hadn't seen this information that Mr. Charlie presented this evening. Is there any way that you could take a look at this and let it inform, it's additional information? My hope would be, based on what Mr. Charlie shared with us, that staff would review this information and see if there isn't any way, unless I misheard Mr. Charlie, he said the Williams are looking at a single-family dwelling, which, as someone who lives in North Albany up that hill, that's music to my ears. If anything's going to be developed somewhere, I just as soon it be a single-family dwelling. At any rate, I think it's only fair to review this additional information that none of us have seen prior to this evening and see if that changes what you can do with them and for them. And he did also mention that they're taking into consideration all the wetland stuff, the riparian, all the things that need to be addressed. They're apparently quite willing to do that. So I would just like to see if staff would consider this additional information, and if that changes something, great. If it doesn't, at least I think it should be considered. Thank you.
Counselor Montague?
I wanted to make sure I understand what you're saying. You're requesting that we deny the request at this time until the applicant completes a wetland delineation, and that the staff understands how it will be developed. How can the applicant demonstrate to staff how this property will be developed?
They would have to complete the wetland of delineation and then put together plans for building permits.
So some sort of plan,
Yeah,
and then the delineation. That's what you're I just want to make sure it's clear what you're looking for so that they can go back and maybe do that. And it sounds like, you can look at this proposal during that time, but I also understand that this proposal probably doesn't include that wetland delineation that you're looking for, correct?
I haven't seen it, so I don't. Yeah.
I flipped through it and I didn't see anything like that. So I'm assuming that's not in there. Thank you.
Am I,
Questions?
I just want to make sure I also understand. You're recommending we suggest granting a temporary access for wetland delineation for considering further access easement requests, right?
Yes, staff's offer is to work with the Williams, and they can just notify us when they would like to access the property, because we do recognize and the position they're in, that they have a landlocked property. And so I think it's very doable to coordinate times for them to access their property.
Okay.
Counselor McGee? Counselor
It was
Kupczynski?
answered.
Okay.
Asked and answered, thank you.
Counselor Kupczynski?
Also answered.
Question. The 10-foot gravel road, to put it in terms that I can understand, 10 feet is the width of the multi-use path along Periwinkle Creek. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And today, so when Covey Run subdivision was developed, which I think is 1999, 2000 era, the minimum width for an access road was 10 feet, and that's what the city has. Today, if we were to build an access road, it would be 12 feet wide, just because of the equipment that we're using.
Thank you. Are you looking for direction now or later? Okay. Is there a proposal?
I move we deny the request at this time and direct the applicant to work with staff to get you the things that you need.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to deny the request at this time, direct staff to work with the applicants to get the delineation that they need and any further information before moving forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Central Albany Parking Area Permit Zone Expansion. Chris Shandell.
Good evening, Council. So I'm here returning after the request from the Lynn County Sheriff's Office in Chance back on November 20th to expand the permitted parking down there, the Central Albany parking area. So that was pretty easy to do. It's just a one-line adjustment. I'm just here to see if you guys had any questions on that. If not, I will move to the next one.
Questions? I have one.
Sure.
How soon can it be in place after decision's made?
So if voted on, I didn't put an emergency clause in there because that's generally not where you guys like to go. So if voted on and approved on Wednesday, it would be 30 days after that. And during that time, before it went active, I'd just be working with them so that they had the permits accessible. Our sign department has to be notified to get the signs out there, and all that would be in the process over those 30 days.
That is on the consent calendar for Wednesday, I believe. Is that correct?
I don't think it's consent.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And then
Don't go anywhere.
I won't.
We'll move ahead to Albany Municipal Code 13.90, private property impounds. That was some pretty compelling reading. Wow.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure
Okay.
that if you guys read that, you'd understand that everything's the same. So back in 2017, we had a lot of issues around Albany where one tow truck company in particular was going into apartment complexes, getting contracts, and then would take cars for backing in, a bunch of random things. When I went to those apartment complex managers, they didn't understand the contract they had signed, didn't agree with the tows, and that was kind of happening all around the state, but there was no board to overwatch it. So we passed a code, a private property impound code to manage that, at which point they had to register with the city, and we enforced where they were. They couldn't leave outside the city. Since then, the state has heard from many cities and developed their own tow board, which I've talked to them quite a bit as they've got complaints from some of our tow companies and that stuff. Anyways, on July 23rd, they enacted their own private property impound thing, which has much greater repercussions if they're violating it, like pulling their actual license to tow around the state. So in effort to not double work or overwork staff if some other entity is doing it, I was requesting we remove that as it's being dealt with at the state level now.
If I may comment first, I think that's really sensible. That's a good example of a state law that should be a state law because it's a problem everywhere. And I'm happy that that's been done.
The only thing, sorry, I forgot to touch on it. So the only thing that's not within that state code that is within our code is that the cars would be able to leave the city. So our code says if you tow from a private property, impound, those cars have to stay within the city and you have to be registered. The state code does not require that.
But we're leaving that in? Are we leaving that in is there any way to put a clause that says that in Albany, your car will not be towed to Salem?
So, yes, we could. However, back when that was being done often, the part of that process was that the tow truck company was able to patrol and do everything without a signature, a photo, or anything from the private property owner. Now, just like our code had, the private property owner has to sign documentation. They have to call for the tow. They cannot randomly just pluck the car out of there. There has to be a process. So that would still require staff to do a lot of work
Okay.
in addition to it.
Let
But
me
yes.
tell you why I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
Back in 2017, 20, whatever, when you're reporting all these problems
Yes.
and why the state actually did something that I would agree with Counselor Smith makes sense.
Yeah.
We had a restaurant on Second Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
We had people who would come on Sundays after church with mobility issues, wheelchairs, walkers, canes, and they would come out and their car would be gone. And it would be in Salem or somewhere that was very difficult for them to get it back. So I do have a concern about that. I don't know what we can do here in Albany, but I would hope, because not just cars in apartment complexes, these cars were parked on the street and in a few spaces. We didn't have really any designated spaces. And then they'd come out and their car would be gone. Or they'd be in the middle of dining and they would see someone hooking up their car. I want to make sure.
So that would
Yeah.
not be allowed per
Okay.
the current
Thank you.
code. There has to be somebody agreeing to have it towed now. So the private property owner, if it's on the public street, it would have to be the police department, it would have to be the city entity, which our contracts, it's gonna stay in Albany, ours is with AA Towing. I'm not sure the particular time that it happened downtown, how that functioned. I do know that there was some people who were in wheelchair handicap spots that weren't displaying it but had their tag that were towed off of 855 Chicago in that 2017 issue, that they were towed to Salem.
Yeah, as far as I know, the people that I'm referring to had clearly marked, I don't know. All I know is that would really bother me if that were to happen again to some sweet person who, has enough to deal with without having to worry about getting to another city to retrieve their vehicle.
Counselor Montague?
Yeah, so what I think you're saying is if we were to, as Counselor Novak's requesting, if we were to require tow companies to stay within Albany, that would require us still licensing them here, and it wouldn't achieve the efficiencies that we are looking to achieve now without having to do all that extra work, and probably wouldn't be worth the small amount of people that would be towed to a different city.
Yes, I don't think it would make, so the company that was doing that was the same company that was getting trouble all around the state.
Okay. Are they out of business now? Do you know?
No.
They have to be in compliance.
Yeah, now they moved to the city. They're with, I mean, they have a lot here, but they still have to follow the state codes, which weren't around, right? They were predatory in nature in that they would show up on a parking lot in the middle of the night, find the car that was backed in and tow it, which was the bigger issue, right? Oftentimes now when you see a private property person that owns the property doing this, they notice, because of all the rules and the tow companies I talk to, like they are kind of a little paranoid about it. So they want to also make sure that the car has been noticed as well. Because the only time that a tow truck company that I know of loses its kind of responsibility is if it's an abandoned car and it's posted for 72 hours, then the ORS has in there that they kind of don't have any liability in that matter. In this process, which is a no 72-hour notice process, they still hold the liability per ORS for that tow. So they want to make sure that what they're doing is correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other comments? This is on the agenda for decision on Wednesday as well.
Yes. Correct.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Business from the council. Start with Counselor McGee.
Nothing at the moment.
Thank you. Counselor Novak?
I have a request. Seeing as how this is one of the last times I will ever speak from this dais, I'd like to go last. Would that be possible?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Counselor Kopsinski?
I'd just like to mention that I have it on good authority that Santa Claus will be at the carousel each weekend through Christmas now, and I believe that the Parks and Rec director can verify that because there was some kids with the Parks and Rec director and sitting on Santa's lap. So if you want to have some fun, free pictures, take as many as you wish, and enjoy the rest of the holiday season.
Thank you very much. Counselor Montague?
I believe since the last time we were here, we did the downtown twice around parade. That was fantastic. I saw lots of little kids very excited that we were waving at them, and went by the trolley or went by the carousel a couple times. Looks like they had a big shindig going on there. Just want to thank everybody who put that on. It was a blast.
Good. Counselor Newton Azor?
I want to second how fun the Downtown Twice Around event was with both Counselor Smith and Counselor Montague.
And me.
And Counselor Novak.
was
I
there.
apologize.
Yeah, that's
We were
okay.
all right next to each other. I
Yes,
apologize.
I know
You were up in the
That's
warm
okay.
section.
And Peter was
and
there as
Peter.
well.
And Peter was there. Sorry. We were shivering
Yes.
it out with where the windows weren't.
Yes, you were. And we were not.
It was quite a cold day. But I will say, Counselor Montague and I, we talked about maybe having a karaoke machine and singing along to songs next year. So just a warning to
Is that a
current
warning,
counselors
threat, or a
and,
promise?
and to Peter. So you'll have to warm up your vocal cords next December. And to future council members. I'm just saying, you guys are going to have to start singing some songs. It'll be a lot of fun.
The daunting challenge. I don't have any comments this evening. City Manager?
Are you skipping me?
No,
Or-
Thank you, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I
I'm
just
sorry.
thought maybe you were going to let me go after Peter. That would really be
No.
last.
I apologize.
That's all right. Okay, so I appreciate the opportunity to share because this is pretty much it for me. So there is a lack of public support in Corvallis for the creation of a new civic campus, and the Corvallis Council was provided with 4 options before the work of their community engagement task force was even completed. The city used the report to bolster decisions they'd already made. Why am I talking about Corvallis? Apart from the fact that the people of North Albany help fund Corvallis ballot initiatives, which is ridiculous, North Albany is annexed to Albany and should not be required to pay for decisions made by a city in which we do not live. My point is that cities have a way of doing things that ensure the result they want. In a review of the reports this council received regarding street maintenance funding, I discovered the following. Initial interview feedback about the benefits and drawbacks of each funding option was used to develop the support and oppose messaging that was tested in the focus groups. Feedback from whom? It couldn't be the 22 focus group members, as their sessions were limited to 2 hours and included written exercises as well as discussion. What feedback was used to develop the messaging tested in the focus groups? Whose feedback? Page 1 of the report states, the lack of support for a gas tax solution during the focus groups led to developing and testing a specific utility fee scenario during the community survey. Page 2 of the summary report, shared with Council on July 22nd, states, in July, the results of the opinion research will be shared with the City Council to help inform consideration of the funding options and next steps to address the city's street maintenance needs. We didn't receive the full report until September 24th, after the vote on September 23rd. The street maintenance utility fee will impact 58,000 people, and it's based on certain feedback from 22 people. Who are they? How were they selected? Page 3 of the report, focus group methodology. Participants were screened using the following criteria. Registered voters in the city of Albany, Oregon. Demographic profile matched to voters in the city, including age, gender, and area. This implies the participants live in other areas and were demographically matched to somewhere in Albany. They weren't voters registered in Albany, but registered voters in the city of Albany. Why would this methodology call for matching age, gender, and area? The language implies that the people in focus groups were not residents of Albany, but brought in from elsewhere. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but that's how it reads to me. Page 4, focus group. This was listed as a key takeaway. Many expressed being financially stressed and worried about paying additional costs. Less than half were willing to pay more than $10 a month, and nearly half said they'd rather do nothing than pay more to fix our streets. This is a key finding from the report. The gas tax is a cost-effective way to the gas tax is cost-effective to administer since it's already collected by the state. Our ordinance lists annual adjustments for inflation, other applicable charges, including any administrative fees. This is a lot of work for staff, and that costs. Another key from the report, arguments for affordability, increasing fees, and cutting waste resonate strongly, and there is little difference among demographic groups. After the information process by Consor, only 35% support the street maintenance utility fee, and almost half said they'd rather do nothing than to have to pay more money that they don't have. On page 48 of the report, EVs not paying their fair share resonated as the best reason to oppose the gas tax. The locally offered solution of a surcharge at the charging stations was not mentioned by Consor, nor was it noted that of the 119,197 vehicles registered in Lynn County, only 1,226 are EVs, and only a small percentage of the 2,660 EVs registered in Benton County are owned by people in North Albany. It's obvious our 22 respondents weren't given this information. This was sold to the focus groups as a fair way to pay. But those living in multi-unit housing have a single water line. Landlords will pay and pass that cost along in higher rents. And how is it fair to those who don't drive or who have one vehicle on the road versus a household with multiple vehicles? I brought a copy of the Corvallis ordinance. We'll leave it with Allison. I appreciate it for its more transparent wording, which says, "Now therefore, the city of Corvallis ordains," versus our, "Now therefore, the people of the city of Albany do ordain." I take issue with that because many of the people in the city of Albany have no idea what we are ordaining upon them until they see a new line item on their bill. I thought Corvallis's methodology of basing the street maintenance on trips made more sense, until I found out Corvallis assumes the same trip rate for all single-family dwellings, which is not equitable and part of the issue I take with how this Albany ordinance is written. I can at least appreciate the fact that there is no mention in the Corvallis ordinance of a civil penalty, much less a $1,000 a day civil penalty. A gas tax with an accompanying street maintenance surcharge at EV charging stations is the only truly equitable way to fund our street maintenance. If the council chooses to move forward and implement Ordinance 6050, please consider what I've presented here and study the final report, as I have. I'm also suggesting a rate freeze for 3 years until a gas tax of 10 cents a gallon can be put to a vote of the people. It's a much more fair, equitable, affordable, and cost-effective option where all who use our streets contribute to the cost of upkeep. Thank you, and I hope you will bear these things in mind when you are dealing with this issue in the future. And thanks for letting me go last.
Anything further from any counselors? City managers report, please.
Just two quick things. New counselor orientation will be December 19th, so that's a week from Thursday. And counselors are welcome to attend that if they like, although they've all been through their orientation previously. And that is all I have. Thank you.
I didn't have anything, but something just occurred to me. I got a surprise in the mail today from municipal court. Jury duty. I haven't done that since I was a junior in college. Yes, it was a jury trial in Harrisburg Justice Court for somebody who had made an illegal lane change on the freeway. My glory days. With that, I will adjourn the meeting, come back on Wednesday at 6 for more city council action.